I guess, like, this is another one of my last few videos, maybe, possibly. So, I know that, like, these accounts are, chomo, Christian nationalist, racist bots, and also, people trying to gain traction. But, they do make some pretty interesting comments. So, I don't want to talk about that part, though. I wanted to talk about the whole, dating a 19-year-old isn't a chomo. Like I said in the addressing comments video, though, this person did edit their comment many times since, they had made it. Or at least, well, after a little while, they went back and edited a lot of stuff a few times. Because, it was honestly worse at first. And originally, they said, dating a 19-year-old is not a chomo, or quote-unquote chomo. And then they changed it. And I wonder if, like, maybe they changed it because of, well, I don't know, because I guess chomo would still mean child in the other word that I don't know if I could say or not. But I was going to talk about that part, as I talked about a lot throughout my videos about the minor crisis and the fake moral crisis that's going on, which goes along with the Dronophile agenda. And I talk about that in my Dronophile playlist as called Dronophiles Are Annoying or something like that. And then my hypothetically paraphilia playlist. And I noticed that the person also said that the book that I was talking about in the video, which I'm going to put in the screenshots, they said that the book was quote-unquote satanic propaganda, which doesn't really make any sense, because you say that chomoism is okay because they're an adult, or since changing the comment anyways, you'd put in that part. But then you say the book is satanic propaganda, but how? The book was just about a boy running away in Santa Cruz or something like that, and there was a part in there about his dad's quote-unquote mistress. And it's like, there's a lot of issues when it comes to dating people your kid's age, but that's not even the point. Now I'm going to get to the point. So, going back to the whole, it's not a chomo because they're an adult. So, first of all, going into the minor crisis thing as well, the word pedo has absolutely nothing to do with whether somebody is 18 or under 18 or not. That has nothing to do with anything. The age of consent is also well below 18. In fact, around the world, and including in the US, it's typically somewhere from 14 to 16 or even lower. That's the laws, but of course that doesn't make it right. So all this like adult this, adult that stuff, it doesn't even make sense because the age of consent is well below 18. And then people are lumping together, as I've said in a recent video and plenty others, people are lumping together age of consent, legal adult, and age of majority all together, and none of those are the same thing. In fact, in a lot of states, while it's not mentioned to keep abused kids in bad situations, in many states, the age of majority is even still 17 and lower. That's not even actually 18 in every state, but they're not going to want to tell people that. I'm pretty sure Georgia is one of them. That's why technically they're supposed to let you leave your abusive family system at 17, but they, of course, still don't. But typically, if you're 15 or older, or if you're melanated, they don't care. Or at least they don't really look. But the police will pretend that they are. But, yeah, so it even goes into like the masquerade of religion, which I think I kind of even talked about maybe in the addressing comments videos, the part 1 and the part 2, but I uploaded the part 2 first, but I'm pretty sure I talk about that all the time anyways. But yeah, so it's like there's just a lot I could say about it, but I talk about this stuff all the time. Saying that someone is an adult isn't an excuse, because I mean, people can do whatever they want to do, especially if whoever you're doing whatever to is your own kid, because your family is considered your property and youth have no rights. So it's like, I mean, regardless of what the laws say, you can do whatever you want to do when you're the perpetrator. So it's like, I mean, technically you could say that anything goes because anything does go, and you could talk about how it's really legal. I wouldn't even really say secretly, but just because the laws say it's okay to hurt whoever and to groom and all that stuff, it doesn't make it right. The laws are made by chomos and all that anyways. I mean, as you can see, when it comes to lawyers and judges, and I've talked about this since before the abuse evidence channels, they only ever give dads custody when they're a chomo. Other than that, they won't. And that's done by design. So, there's plenty of things with that, but I guess maybe that's all I really have to say about that. And then, so like I forgot, and the reason why the age of consent is typically anywhere from 14 to 16, sometimes 12, or well, in some places 8, but more so at the 14 to 16, is because you become a man or woman somewhere from 13 to 16, although a lot of girls in some places more than others, depending on the food, they start puberty at 8, and apparently boys do at 12, but that depends on the person. Seems like it could be later than that for some. And so, anyways, that's why that's the way that is. So, like, I mean, yeah, teenagers aren't children, but that can even go back to the actual definition of pedo, which is attraction to people who haven't started puberty yet. So for girls, that would be under 8. For boys, that would be younger than 12, but that depends on the person. So it's like, I mean, that would be like 7, well, not like, that would be people 7 and younger. But is it okay if you get with somebody who's 8 plus? So the whole who's an adult and who isn't thing, that's kind of whatever. And still, you're a federal minor till 26. And the ageism doesn't stop till you're 30 or really 40. So I talk about that all the time as well. It's actually kind of funny because, as I've always said since the evidence channels, there's always an agenda to keep youth in bad abusive situations and to adultify and infantilize them all at the same time, while making sure they're not really able to do anything, treating youth like crap, and putting youth in a position where the only thing they can ever get is abuse. Because it's like, I mean, people only want youth to have some sort of quote-unquote rights, just for abusers to have more of the upper hand. And that's how it always goes. People only want to put laws in place to make it where people can escape their abusive family systems easier, just to get people in the hands of groomers easier. And typically, the people who fall into this stuff, if they're not put in it by their family, and it's not being done by their family. They've already been SA'd, and that's why they're used to it, and they already have paraphilias like dronophilia, to where they're already attracted to older people because they've already been through this type of trauma. Crap, and it's raining. And so, dang, hold up, looks like it's about to be a storm. And so, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, and this can go into, like, as I mentioned before, and many people may know, youth rights and the few youth rights groups, like on Reddit, have been completely infiltrated by chomos pushing rhetoric about paraphilias for years now. Youth rights isn't even youth rights anymore. It's just chomos and paraphiliacs and Thelemites pushing their agendas. And of course on Reddit you can't even call them out for it. Like, they're the ones that'll come in youth rights groups and make posts about why youth should be able to view porn imagery, which shouldn't exist anyways, that nobody should be watching, because it's people abuse imagery, all of it, regardless of how old anybody is. So yeah, anywho, this even goes into like how the minor crisis bullcrap, it's just, one is the fake social justice warrior, fake moral crisis side, but it's also a good way for people who are sex preds to like pretend that they care about things that they really don't, by like pushing this only if they're legal thing. And the ones who know the laws, they know that, like, one, anything goes for real, that's the actual reality, but two, if the person is 15 or 16 plus, then it's whatever. So the only if they're legal people also know that, like, of course that like 16, 15, younger is legal. So like they're not really for protecting anybody or for youth rights, and they're pro-abuse. And that's what all this who's legal, who's not, who's a minor, who's not stuff is. Then as far as the whole children thing, teenagers are not children. Anybody who's 9 or at least 10 or older isn't a child. The whole idea that like people in those ages are children, that's adultism and pro-perpetrator philosophies in and of itself. The idea that the whole concept of a child is really bullcrap, but the idea of a child, and even, well, kind of like I always say, you're grown, or you're an adult, and you're a child could be used interchangeably. So like, I'm trying to think of an example. Like, okay, so someone I know, usual abuse situation with financial abuse, infantilization to try to trap them and also keep them from having basic needs met. They were 13, but they're 14 now. They've been trying to get a job since before they turned 14 some months ago. But because they're a quote-unquote child and the parents feel like pretty much they didn't want them to have a job because they didn't want them to have money, and they feel like it may make them look bad. They didn't want the girl to get a job because she's a quote-unquote child. But now that she has a job, of course they're doing the usual stealing paychecks, but they also want her to pay her medical bills and pay for her doctor's appointments because now she's technically grown and all that. So it's like, it's interchangeable, and it could go either way to be used against you.
So aside from the fact that a lot of people think AOC is the age where you can R-word somebody, and then it's okay because I guess they think AOC means once they hit that age they've consented, and how if you get caught, quote unquote, getting essayed by your parents, you can get charged and go to jail.
And also personally, I don't even like the whole concept of age of consent, and there's a lot of things I could say about that. like the whole concept is kind of messy in general, because it's like, I mean, you could always keep going up. It seems like nobody can really consent because there's nothing but a bunch of manipulation and games and sleeping around going on. But also when it comes to actual abuse and satanic ritual abuse, kidnapping, and all that stuff, the age of consent is irrelevant. I mean, yeah, when it comes to like really young people being used for rituals, then that's bad. But when it comes to like, I don't know, certain stuff, I don't know how to put it, because I know like some people are going to feel some type of way about this, and I've said this plenty of times before, but it's like, when it comes to actually like doing things against somebody's will, there is no consent anyways. So it doesn't even make sense why, like, okay, for example, a 16-year-old, 14-year-old, whatever, in some places 12, their age of consent, but they got kidnapped and they're being like R-worded or pimped out or whatever in the world. Their age of consent, but they didn't consent anyways. So it's like, what in the world? Crap, and that's the bus, I think. So yeah, like, I don't even really like the concept of age of consent, because it's just a lot of issues with it. And that's what, like, when you're in a moral society, it's just like bullcrap, like age of consent. So I mean, you already have the right to do whatever you want to your kids and family anyways, and nobody cares. And the victim has even less rights against a relative. Their world has completely none, I mean. So, like, you can already do whatever you want, but then there's also another side to that where, like, you're essaying your kid, but once your kid is 16 or whatever, they can, or even younger, and they're the age of consent, then that's the new excuse to make it okay, aside from the fact that nobody cares anyways, and people can just say, well, they're the age of consent, so now, since they're quote-unquote agreeing to have quote-unquote sex with their parents, then it's whatever. It's just a lot of issues with that. I don't even think age of consent should even be a thing, because it's just so much issues with it, and it doesn't really make any sense. Although I get that, like, in a messed up society, the front, the smoke and mirrors is that laws are put in place because people are going to do these things, and you have to, like, be able to say, this is why we're supposedly going to charge you and put you in jail, which will never happen because you're breaking the law. But people are the law, and I mean, there's a spiritual laws, but as far as like the written bull crap, it's just like, I don't think this is coming out how I wanted to, but it's just so much of a fake aid with all of it. It's a facade, it's whatever it's called, or is fake aid facade. Is that the same? I don't know, but I'm trying to think. But yeah, so I mean, a 19-year-old isn't a child the same way a 17-year-old or a 13-year-old or a 12-year-old isn't a child. I forgot that part. I could throw that in there. But that's also, I mean, I know that's what chomo would mean technically, but that's also why, at least for me, I'd rather say paraphiliac, the Lemite, or chomo than the pedo term. I don't even really like those psych label things though. And then, like, even going into the map bull crap, like, as I've said before, the term itself doesn't make sense. Like, minor, compared to, like, minor and what laws, because that can mean anywhere from 8 to 16. And then why would you only be attracted to, like, people under those ages? Because that sounds more like chronophilia than anything. Because it's like, I don't know, it doesn't make sense. Like, the map term just doesn't it shouldn't exist, and I don't trust anybody who uses that term, just like I wouldn't trust anybody who uses the term minor, really. I would only trust them it depends on like how they're using it, but still in general, I really don't trust people who use any of those terms. But the nap term especially is just really stupid. It's like, so, are you like an actual pedo? Do you like people who haven't started puberty? Are you an amphibophile or hebephile? Which one of those, one or both of those, I think, goes in being attracted to people in their 20s. But then then it also is another side, like, well, how old are you? Because like the minor crisis bullcrap has kids having it drilled into their head that anybody who's 17 or 16 or older is a chomo, or 18 plus is a chomo, or even that the word pedo means anybody 18 or older or 17 or older. There's also new stuff coming out that I feel goes hand in hand with the dronophile agenda, where like people are saying that 17 and 18 plus isn't an adolescent. And adolescence has always been age 9 to 25. In fact, technically, the brain development really goes into at least 32. But it's like now people are trying to like act like people in their mid to late teens and stuff like that, or like way older and way more grown than they really are, and that itself goes into actual chomoism and the dronophile agenda that people really don't seem to notice. That's exactly why I keep saying they're trying to scare younger people into not dating people their age by telling them that they're chomos, while trying to groom them into dating actual chomos, and it's all really weird. That's why I feel like not dating is a good thing. And then also the whole thing where like a lot of people are becoming asexual, which I've talked about that before in some video, and I put like some links to other people's videos about that, because like people are forced on psychotropics in infancy that have them with PSSD and libido issues and all that. Then the SA trauma, the early sexual exposure trauma, and the fact that there's just so much sexual bullcrap everywhere that people are just tired of it. There's a Marine Kingdom agenda side, and so it makes sense that like a lot of people are going into sex aversion, because I don't know, like sex aversion will often come after hypersexuality, sexual trauma, whatever in the world. Because I'm thinking about a response I got from somebody when I said that like the Jeffrey stuff, even the whole Diddler situation is all a distraction. It's all old news, and still people really don't care. And it's like, I know wait a minute, I know people are gonna like feel some type of way about me saying that. I mean, not that I care, because like people like to say things like you have a bad view on people, or you just want to, how are you going to tell people how they feel? But it's all a game, because for one, I'm pretty sure this stuff is like decades old, and like now people are pretending to care once again, because it's like there's cycles with this every couple of years, just like with the bullcrap, BLM, racial stuff, and all the fake events, and every few years something supposedly happens that really didn't happen, and then there's like some racial mess. It's just like that, except this stuff is real, with like the SRA and stuff, but it's all games. It's a distraction. It's made to be political, especially with this situation. The racial stuff, I mean, that's not even really political, because both wings are on the same bird, and both wings are racist and anti-human as a whole. But this supposed quote-unquote pedo stuff, which I'm going to get into that, it's just being turned into like a political thing. Just like how when it comes to what could I even say that wouldn't get this like possibly taken down? The trans stuff. Yeah, I think I spelled that right. With like the trans kids and the hormone stuff, all that. The books, how like that form of essay, because it definitely is a form of essay, and it's also a form of Munchausen by proxy. That was turned into a political thing. People pretending to care about abuse by making it a political debate and saying, oh, the left does this, the right does that, more divide and conquer, and worshiping elites who don't care about you and are all puppets and aren't even human, to be honest. And that's what's going on now, along with the social justice warrior minor crisis part, which I'm pretty sure I mentioned in my first 2 audio recordings. And so another thing that I wanted to talk about, so I remember one of the times I was talking about how the whole thing is really a distraction anyways. Somebody was like, okay, so you like pedos. In fact, no, I didn't even say just the distraction part. I mentioned how like it's all just games and people really don't care. In fact, something that I've said since I was 9 is that when it comes to this SRA traf stuff, when it like with higher level traf and all that, if you're still in like the white supremacist philosophy of atheism and you don't believe in the supernatural or even the fact that people are Satanist or whatever other religion, which is like, I don't even really think that's just atheism, because atheism is supposed to be level 1 Satanism. I think like, I don't really believe in the atheism thing anyways when people say that they're atheists, but it's just really a lot of stupidity and like cognitive dissonance, to be honest. Because it's like, I don't even know how to explain it, but I'm just going to get back to the point. Since I was 9, I've said that if you don't believe in the supernatural side and the ritualistic side and the satanic and religious side to SRA and higher level traf, or I guess maybe even traf and abuse in general, because all abuse is a demonic ritual, then you don't believe at all. You're the same person that'll tell a survivor or victim or whatever that they're lying and they're just quote-unquote schizo with religious fervor and all that bullcrap because you don't believe in Satanism and you don't believe in the supernatural and you don't believe in God. And so, since you don't believe in that, you think that, like, your false reality is supposed to counteract other people's lives and experiences and the reality of the world. And that's a high level of pride and stupidity, but I'm not even really going to get into that any further because it's kind of hard to explain. But it's like, if you're making it a political thing, you don't believe or care. If you're if you don't believe in the supernatural side, then you don't believe or care. And in general, I don't even like all this talking stuff. I've said that for years on end now. It's just a bunch of talking and people doing the whole, I'm talking about it, so I'm a good person and I'm a social justice warrior and I care. I don't even like all that. It's a bunch of, what do I usually say? All bark, no bite stuff that I could care less for. And so, what else was it? Oh yeah, but to get to the point. So another point that I wanted to get into, people making it about being a quote-unquote pedo, I don't even like that, to be honest. There's a lot of things with that. I'm pretty sure I already mentioned in the other 2 recordings that I don't even like the psych label bullcrap. But it's like, people are making this just about paraphilias, but it's deeper than that. It's about rituals. I mean, I would honestly say the average person is probably an ephibophile or hebophile. I get them mixed up, but I can't remember which one is which, but I know one is supposed to be like attraction to like pretty much teenagers to 20s. So yeah, I feel like the average person is probably at least that. When it comes to being a full-blown pedo by definition, I mean, unfortunately, a lot of people are that as well, but I would definitely say that being attracted to people that have at least started puberty is really common. But that's not even really the point I wanted to get into. The real point is that this is about, like, actual rituals and torture. It has nothing to do with who's attracted to what age. It's about rituals, not even just about the power dynamics and all of that. When people talk about this as if it's about being attracted to children or supposed quote-unquote children, that's just like, that's besides the point as well. That's way besides the point, because there's so many arguments that could be made behind that go on the side of the abuser, and it's just really not what it's about. It even makes me think about that screenshot in that YouTube short that I uploaded a couple weeks ago, where I just so happened to see a video of some type of mental health professional talking about how the Steen dude, the Jeffrey dude, isn't a pedo because he only liked girls that were teenagers on up. And that's honestly not pedo by definition, but it's like, not only is that not true whatsoever, that he only liked teenagers on up, like teenagers at 20s or whatever in the world, it has nothing to do with attraction. It's about rituals. There's also that side. Like, of course I didn't watch it because I don't watch any of that bull crap, but I had seen the video in my recommended, and it was a Jeffrey dude, and I guess it was like someone asking him, like, when did he realize that he was attracted to, like, children or quote-unquote children, and it's like, that's not even the issue, like, whatsoever. There's plenty of people that, like, have the demonic OCD of Paris that don't do any of that stuff, that, one, have never done anything to anybody, two, definitely aren't doing rituals on people or high-level SRA. And so there's also that side, and I know a lot of people don't like the non-offending pedo rhetoric, and I mean, there's that, but that's not even really what I'm talking about. I just don't even like how people try to blur supposed attraction with full-blown torture. Like, that even goes hand in hand. And it's like even when I think about myself, I talk about, and well, I've talked about for years, how I've had hypersexuality since 3 and all that stuff, and how the chomo sex press that I run into on a daily basis, like, a lot of the predatory ways about them, it makes me think about how I used to be when I was elementary age, and not even on purpose, but one of the things that helped me with a lot of those issues was, I already knew it was demonization, but also knowing that, like, if I really care about people, or quote-unquote love people, then I would have to respect them and not do things that, like, make them feel whatever type of way, and not hurt people, and what else was it? I'm forgetting something. But anyway, the point I'm trying to get at is that, like, if you really want to, like, not hurt people and stuff, then, like, you'll do all you can to not do that, but that's not even really the point. It's just like, there's plenty of people that have whatever sexual issues and they don't run around terrorizing and torturing people, and it's like, rituals have nothing to do with attraction anyways. I mean, yeah, I'm sure that, like, after a while of doing the rituals and having them done to you, then you will, like, develop Paris, because that's how it works. That's how the demonization, it's like a contagious, pretty much. That's how that would work, but still, it doesn't mean you do rituals on people. But another side as well is that, I'm pretty sure I've talked about this before, like, all abuse is a demonic ritual still, and that's why everybody has a level of DID, or splits and fractures from trauma. There's a lot I can say about that, which I talk about all the time. And so another thing is that people will talk about how, like, bad this higher level SRA stuff is, but it's the same stuff that they're doing to their kids that they call discipline, or quote unquote God's discipline and biblical discipline. Some of it is the same stuff that they're doing on a daily basis to their kids because quote unquote it's what you're supposed to do. You do SRA, Virgo, well not Virgo, but, well probably, but I mean whoopings are sexual abuse, so, but anywho, you do SRA, trauma, DID rituals on your kids and relatives every single day. And it's just so much with it. It's like, all of it is really projection. People trying to say, well, I don't do that, they do this, but it's a societal issue. It's not even an individual issue. Like, people always want to say the whole it's the elites thing, but that's bullcrap as well, the whole it's just the elites that are doing this stuff. I mean, certain things that, like, maybe you wouldn't have access to, yeah, but it's like, this stuff is going on an individual level. Like, you would only know how many people are chomo sex preys if you're the target or if you have discernment. And in some places more than others, like, it's most, or at least half of the people, and I mean, nobody's really safe. There's so much I can say about that. Because for one, chomoism, and even literal, being a literal pedo, like, that's been normalized since the beginning of time. So, I mean, it's like people try to act like it's something new, but it's actually something that only very recently started supposedly being seen as bad. Okay, crap, last thing I forgot, which I mention this all the time throughout the years. This even goes back to the whole feminist, boys and guys don't get SA thing. And so, also another thing that's being done is, like, making this seem like it's just about, like, female prostitution or something, that, like, one, people are, like, I don't know, just making, like, high-level traffic and SRA seem like it's just about prostitution, and then making it seem like it's only about women and girls. There's also that side. And I mean, yeah, oftentimes they will, like, hide the guys and the boys because they're trying to, like, push the bullcrap straight persona, which honestly, I don't even like terms like straight. And I don't even believe that most people are even really heterosexual, because it seems like due to different trauma stuff and things pushed in the media, most people have some form of paraphilia, which really isn't being hetero. And I mean, you can have a para and still not like the opposite gender or whatever, but you're still really not hetero if you have any para. I don't even think, I mean, I don't know how to put it, but I mentioned this story before. I think, well, actually, I don't even remember where. I feel like it was around the time where I was, like, making more homeless and runaway testimonial videos. Although this person wasn't a runaway, but some boy who was 15, and he was talking about how he either lives in New Zealand or Australia, can't remember which one, and he was dating some lady who was in her 20s, and his parents had just divorced. His dad left and went wherever, and his mom was neglectful and abusive and stuff. And he was really depressed and all that. And so, the lady did what a lot of these types of people do. Like, they get with you until they can get with somebody their own age or maybe even younger. And that's how it goes a lot, especially with the women that do this. It's like, I mean, it happens with the guys, but especially for the women, you're often a placeholder. And one of the funny things that I've learned is that the prettiest women are the chomos. I mean, obviously not all the time, but that's what I see really often. But I'm not even going to go into that, because then I'll be somewhere else. Anyhow. So, what was I going to say with that? Oh, yeah, but he was the age of consent, and he still felt like he got taken advantage of. But since it was legal, there's nothing he could really do about it anyways. And I mean, I can't speak for anywhere else, but I know here, like, when it comes to SA and stuff, the laws don't matter anyways unless you have, like, some older person, like a parent, who's actually willing to, like, go to court with you. And that still depends on who actually did what to you. I almost threw up. And so, like, trying to go to court against these people on your own typically isn't going to work out. I mean, just like with the AOC, it's really supposed to be like, I'm trying to think how I could summarize. It's kind of like how two people could be dating for years on end, and then the day one of them turns 18, typically the boyfriend, especially if it's a racial situation or if the parents just don't like the boyfriend, they get him put on the sex offender registry. Because as I've always said, when it comes to the laws, they're made against youth to get youth charged and locked up for any and everything that actual grown people would never even get charged or even confronted for. And so, like, what I'm trying to say is that with the AOC laws, I mean, like how lawyers say there are no laws against who you can date, so you can date anybody, but there's supposedly just laws against who you can have sex with, which that's not even all that true. But it's like, people can date whoever they want, really, depending on what you even consider dating. But, like, unless you really have an older person, like especially a parent or guardian, who really feels some type of way about the relationship, other than that, it's legal. And I don't know if that came out right. Kind of like a situation where, like, this girl who was 16, she went to jail because her and her friends jumped her boyfriend, who was 27, because he broke up with her. And so, yeah, if the parents are okay with it, or whoever all is okay with it, it's not really going to be considered illegal anyways. There's nobody to really actually, like, make the case a case and take it to court or to help you do that. So then it's still whatever. So another thing when it comes to AOC, especially when it comes to, like, people, I would say, like, especially 13 on up, or maybe even more so 15 on up. The idea is that I guess you're supposed to be able to consent, which I know, like, a lot of people will say children can't consent, but like I've talked about before, teenagers aren't children. And the big issue with this stuff is actually the family system and the neglect and the abuse and already being SA'd. Because, like, something that I noticed when there's, like, a kid, even in places like when I was in GA where most people, male and female, have been SA'd, and a lot of the kids, well, honestly, I mean, this is a pandemic anyways, they're addicted to corn and all types of stuff. The few kids that haven't been SA'd by a family member or a family friend or whoever, they were really judgmental about the kids who had been SA'd and, like, their trauma symptoms, like hypersexuality, selling their cells for $5, different things that, like, the other kids were doing. Well, yeah, like, a lot of the kids were doing, because so many people had been SA'd by the cousin, whoever, mom's boyfriend, whatever in the world. And I even remember there was this whole situation with this one girl, because this was during my little 3 months of school, if even that. and the girl was talking on the bus, and I always remember this, and she was like, I can't stand people that don't respect themselves and will sell their soul for $5. And it's like, for one, if I'm remembering right, you're a couple years older than the girl, but that's not even really the point. The big thing is, like, why does it even offend somebody else who has nothing to do with the situation so much that somebody's traumatized and has sexual addiction and also has low self-esteem and doesn't value themselves? It doesn't even make sense that you quote-unquote can't stand those types of people when it's just like how people talk about people who are on substances, or more so the homeless people who are on substances, especially in areas where what I like to call the Caucasian addict projection came out of. It doesn't make sense that, like, people like to play this moral, what do people call it, holier than thou type game, and they like to talk about how they hate drug addicts, but it doesn't make sense because their coping mechanisms don't affect you or have anything to do with you. And it's like people act like somebody unaliving themselves slowly is doing something to them. But anywho, that's not even really the point. The main point is that people who actually, like, aren't severely traumatized and, like, have been taught not to do these things and to avoid these things and all that, they more so have the ability to consent no matter whatever age, or to, I guess, not consent. I don't think this is coming out right, because it's like, I don't know, like, they talk junk about the people who do fall into these types of cycles of life, as I call them, because like these people will say, or like these kids will say, I will never do what that girl does or what that boy does because I know better, and I know better than to be sleeping around or talking to old people and all that. And it's like, they don't have the paraphilia, so they're not like a dronophile or whatever, to where they're attracted to older people. They don't have the sexual addiction, maybe, or they don't have it to that extent or in that form. And they don't have the trauma for it or whatever. And so they feel like they're better because, quote-unquote, they know better. And oftentimes, like, as I've talked about a lot throughout the years, the whole community, the school system, the police department, the family system will come against, especially girls, because it's really common for them to go against girls in these types of situations and call them WHOREs and different things like that. I talk about the common situation of somebody's essay imagery going viral and, like, everybody in the town seeing it, and how, like, everybody will bully them. Like, even this one girl I know, her school resource officer would come and talk junk to her about it when she was 12 and even older.
And to quickly throw this in here, I also mentioned, or I've mentioned before, stories of someone else who their essay imagery went viral and the school bullied them, and people even hung nooses on their locker and told them to unalive themselves because they were HOE and all types of stuff. And of course, I mentioned that whole situation from the 2010s that you can't even find any videos or any info about anymore, where the girl eventually ended up unaliving herself because of being bullied by the whole town and her parents. And she had made videos using, like, sticky notes and stuff talking about why she was going to unalive herself, and there was that whole situation. It's really common.
And tell her that she was ruining her life by being a quote-unquote hoe and all that, yet he had the kids at the school come in his house for essay parties and all types of stuff. And it's like, people are just really weird. But anywho, so what else was I gonna say with that? Oh yeah, but it's like, as I've said before, if it wasn't for the trauma and the kid being used to it and the person going into sexual addiction and all that, a lot of these situations wouldn't be an issue. And I'm not talking about people being born in the bloodlines where they're taken through high-level SRA trafficking. I just mean lower-level stuff. Like, not even traffic, but just, like, dating a sexual predator or whatever and all that stuff. To summarize this without giving a lot of info, or too much info, which this can also go into the street kids aren't seen as kids, and then my other video titled Truth of Youth Homelessness, where I also talk about something similar, I think. So or more so, this goes into my very recent video titled Amazing Grace, where I talk about how, like, you're not allowed to see yourself as a kid, and then, like, I don't even know how to summarize that, so I'm not going to go into that, but pretty much, this made me think about that. So, someone's been, like, I guess, dating, like, sexual predators and all that for years or whatever due to trauma, neglect, and then the street kid situation. But they see another kid, being completely attacked by Ice Cube agents, and they're talking about how that's not right because that's the effing child. But when somebody said something about your current situation, they even use the same term, that's not right because you're an effing child. And I know I'm trying not to give too much detail here, but the situation with this person, which this is recent, it made me think about the Amazing Grace video and just the whole thing. And I'm gonna put in a screenshot because it's a timestamp for a video that I'm gonna make, which is gonna be another compilation, a part 2 to I don't even know what it was titled, but the thumbnail is Hulk, the Incredible Hulk, about just how, like, people are and how the issues of people not coming together. But I'm gonna throw in this screenshot, not because of the timestamp, but because in this video, Karina Lourdes talked about how, like, teachers and stuff will play on, like, 8-year-old kids' crushes and stuff, and the psychology about kids is that, or quote-unquote children, is that you don't know you're a child. I don't believe in the whole concept of a child, really. If it is a thing, it's definitely only, under 10 or 12 or whatever. But when it comes to the whole kid thing, I will say that one of the biggest things about it is that, as I always say, you're a child until somebody wants to lock you up, essay you or whatever. And then there's a whole grown insult. But it's like, you're really not allowed to see yourself as a kid anyways. And then the 18 obsession doesn't help with that. Because, like, a lot of people, they're made to feel like just these crazy expectations, especially due to the rhetoric that's pushed, that if you hold on to dear life till 18, then you'll be able to have a childhood and a whole bunch of other stuff, and then you'll be able to, just a lot of things that just aren't going to be true. Like if you don't have a family and you go through a lot of trauma and you're bound to be alone the rest of your life, continuing to go through trauma and die alone, that's always gonna, you're just pretty much, it is what it is, and it's never gonna be a good situation. Then even the idea that, like, you're guaranteed to get out your abuse situation by 18, a lot of people never leave their abusive family systems for many reasons, and if they do, it's typically way older than that. Although I will say that, like, the information that's out about, like, that helps people identify abuse, helps people know they need to get out sooner. But I mean, people, especially in, like, really serious situations, have always ran away, but the laws put in place make that harder to do. But that's not even really the point, because I'm going way somewhere else. The point is that it's interesting how this person can identify that somebody else is a quote-unquote child, supposedly. Really, I mean, I get why they would say that in the situation, but really not by definition. But it was a high school student, because of course the Cubes, they've been raiding schools and stuff because the teachers have been calling them on the students. But anywho, it's just interesting that this person can say that about somebody else, but not understand that they're also a quote-unquote child. But of course they're not going to, because they've never had parents, they're abused and traumatized, they're a street kid, so they're barely going to even get to really see themselves as a kid, because as far as most people care, you're just a grown man or woman bum. And not that I like the idea, or have ever liked the idea that the lazy 40-year-old man rhetoric is okay or right, and that if somebody is a 40-year-old man, then they deserve to be treated bad, but people should be nicer to the street kids. I don't like any of that divide weird stuff and that bias bullcrap, but I'm just saying that's really interesting to me. And that even goes into this. There's a lot of talk about consent this, consent that, and people preying on people, but the thing is, I mean, you're either born a warrior or sex goddess or you're not, apparently. Like, even something that I realized when I was younger, when it comes to thinking about if I was other people and if I thought like them, and especially with the example of the abusive teacher from Matilda, which that whole movie has a lot of anointed prophetic, neurodivergent empath, and even occultic subliminals behind it. But anywho, people will hate kids because they never got to be a kid. But the stereotypical childhood is bullcrap, and I don't think most people have that. And in my ageism and cataclysmic repositioning playlist, I talk about stereotypical high school propaganda and media like High School Musical. And then, even if you're not a street kid, you still live with your abusers. In isolated situations or certain situations, and then of course when it comes to being a street kid, as I mentioned before, you're not going to really, it's just really hard to find people around your age. If you didn't get to go to school, for like, especially for like not really school age anymore, or because you're not in school, and maybe like didn't live in a neighborhood where like people came outside, which is really common these days unless you live in like a pretty poor area where people don't have a whole bunch of Xboxes and stuff. And then people aren't going to want you around their kids. There's a lot of stuff with that. And then of course you're going to be seen as quote unquote grown because you're on your own. So like if you're under 18, people will sometimes feel funny about that and act like they're going to get accused of something, or like they need to call the police on you. And then if you're 18 plus, people may try to act like you're way growner than you are and almost make you seem like some type of predator because you're on your own. And that can cause some issues if the people your age that you're friends with aren't like the exact same age as you. So like if they're not 18 as well, so like if they're 17, it can just cause like a lot of bullcrap depending on like what type of parents they have or whatever. And in general, a lot of people end up out here, at least when it comes to like due to like an abusive family system, being a scapegoat in the cash your kid system or whatever. You didn't really fit in with people anyways, especially people your age most likely. So it's kind of whatever. And so the point that I'm getting at with that, going back to the thing with this person, and even kind of just speaking in general, as I've said before, you're probably gonna have to just like be around a lot of older people regardless. And I mean, there are other street kids. Like I talk about how like there's not many in the South. They're not really that there's not many. It's not really acknowledged, and like they're often hidden homeless. And I mean, there's definitely a lot around, but it's like I still have never really, like speaking of, I mean, I never really people might have always made me nervous, to be honest. I've only ever really been able to talk to people decades older than me, but more and more the past years, it's like just so many people, especially 40 to like 80, are sexual predators, and it's just like it's not even really something I could do anymore. Not that I really did it by choice, because I mean, if I didn't like embarrass myself and stuff, and also like had the chance to really be around people my age, then I would. But it's kind of like, I don't know, they just always made me really nervous. I talked about this when it came to the Miss S and J situation, because even the elderly lady that I'm calling J, she had went on this little rant about how she's scared of kids and how she never got to be around kids, and how she can't tell the difference between somebody who's a teenager in their 20s and how babies scare her, and she doesn't even like say hey to them or anything. And the other person that was there when she was talking was like, had like a scared look on her face, but I get exactly what she means, because that's the way I've always felt. Like, even going back to NPDs, it's like there's another fake gate or facade, whatever it's called, that I have to put on, or had to put on back when like I'd be around people my age, and it didn't really go well. There's just a lot of stuff with that. So it's like, you're probably already drawn to older people, and you're probably also only ever around older people, and that can lead to even more mess. And then when it comes to getting these like desperate high survival situations, or maybe not even high survival, because this is honestly more peaceful, but just desperate situations, like relationships are bound to happen regardless of how old who is. Like, people want quote unquote husbands and wives and a makeshift family in these dire situations, especially when it comes to the homeless community. So it's like, no matter how old who is, people are bound to get together. But there's typically going to be issues with that, whether you're out here or you're still staying in whatever abuse situation. Even like when it comes to dating in the cash for kids system or the human cash cow systems. Like, I remember one story of some people who were locked in an insane asylum, which is a part of the human cash cow systems, and they had a baby together. The baby was sent off, and they were separated and sent hundreds of miles away from each other, and they got really depressed, of course. So I mean, people are gonna fall in love, or supposedly fall in love, or just want somebody by their side in these types of situations. But there's a lot of mind games with all of it.